I'm not a graphic snob, but I do have a large collection of beautiful 2D side-scrollers and pixel art games that basically sit on the shelf of my Steam account. I'll play them someday, I'm sure. On the other hand, I tend towards sci-fi and fantasy genres in general because I don't want to spend my moment of escapism in a familiar setting. It seems unimaginative to do so. So why the hell am I playing Yuppie Psycho the Executive Edition, and why can I not stop playing it? You play as Brian Pasternak, and from now on we'll just call him Parsnip. You are a Class G citizen, and that's bad, and you finally finish your basic studies to get a letter of offer from the biggest company in the world, satirical. This is a dream come true for Brian because it would instantly make him a Class A citizen and earn a lot of money. It's almost too good to be true. Brian isn't an idiot, but he is inexperienced, so functionally an idiot. He fully acknowledges from the outset that this could be a prank or a scam, but you know, you gotta be in it to win it. You start the game in the lobby of Sintracorp, and that's where your story begins. Usually I don't do this, but this is just straight up an 8.5 out of 10 game. I'm loath to spoil the details and plot, so I'll just list the major barriers to entry first, and then you can decide to close the review and play the game for yourself before I get into the nitty-gritty. Here we go. If you are easily scared and don't want to be confronted by frightening images, this game is not for you. If you don't like anime, then this game is probably not for you. If you cannot tolerate 2D pixel graphics, as stunning as they may be, then this game is not for you. If you require action combat and or indulgent power fantasies, then this game is not for you. If you hate puzzles, this game is not for you. There you go. Now you can close the browser and buy the game. Did you do it? Are they gone? So anyways, the fact that you got hired out of the blue is pretty weird. The fact that there is a single elevator with a security camera over it granting access is pretty weird. And I think if you haven't caught on yet, then the phrase "kill the witch" written on the wall in blood when you go to sign your contract is a dead giveaway that this game is pretty weird. This is not going to be a cozy office management sim. Instead, Yuppie Psycho is a satirical survival horror aimed squarely at our corporate culture. So not only is Parsnip a likable every guy on his first day in the big city, but if you have ever worked in an office, you're going to relate. I often found myself rolling my eyes or chuckling with what was being said and what was happening. From staff motivational talks that motivate literally no one, to the guy that takes up smoking so they can leverage smoke breaks. You'll even sniff the "you'll get used to it, it's always been like this" mantra of any modern office. On the flip side, there are dead office workers all over the place. The printer grew hands and is lobotomizing the staff, and one floor is home to a forest goblin. But Liv, how is it possible in a single high-rise? Well, that's the beauty of having your company infested by a witch. The truth is that Parsnip has been unknowingly hired as a witch hunter, and this witch has been corrupting and festering within Sintracorp for decades, and so our cat and mouse game begins. The witch is trying to find out who the witch hunter is, and the witch hunter is trying to discover the witch's identity. So how does Parsnip accomplish this goal? Well, you can walk up to things and interact or pick them up with E. If you have an item that can perform an action, you simply open your inventory and press the use button, and it will either work or it will not. The interact button basically shits all over AAA titles by instantly performing the action rather than having you hold it for 5 seconds. Square Enix, Santa Monica, Bungie. It's like they all watched the one clip where the Destiny devs explained that players weren't very happy when they deleted their favorite gun. So they made it so that you have to hold down the button for 5 seconds. Lo and behold, they missed the context, because it now takes 5 seconds to open a door that has zero consequence to the player in their games. Either the devs here are very clever, or they never watched the clip. Sometimes you can crawl under tables to hide. This is just a case of walking into it and it does it automatically. You can also run. Parsnip can keep his health up by eating or drinking, and there's a simple recipe system that can help. For example, if you get dried noodles and a cup of water, you can take them to the microwave and that will cook the noodles. All this to say, you aren't really a fighter. You're going to have to make use of whatever you find to stuff in your briefcase and your wit. Like if you're feeling particularly aggressive, you can really go wild and stab some witch minds with HB office pencils, but you're not going to win a fight with a cursed firefly. So what is the gameplay? Well, imagine if you were playing something in between Resident Evil with no guns and Curse of Monkey Island, and we're sort of getting close. Most of the gameplay revolves around solving puzzles and avoiding enemies. You aren't totally alone. You will make friends along the way, perhaps a romance, but not everyone is exactly who they say they are. Office workers can be in various stages of delusion or under the witch's curse, or perhaps they just like things the way they are. All this to say that your dialogue options do matter. You get most of your briefings from the company's AI, and you do this by logging into your computer with your ID card. Doing this puts you in a green wireframe world where you will talk to Sintra and gain some direction. While you do have some direction, you can pretty much go to most floors and interact with the world freely. Doing so is in fact rewarded. Help someone get promoted from the second floor to the third floor and they will leave the door open to security. Brave security and spy on your coworkers and you might just alter the entire playthrough with the information given. Find an empty beer bottle and later it can be used to give you a magic contract that allows you to breathe water. How? Well, I'm not going to tell you. Sadly, this game is difficult to review because the plot and the gameplay are so heavily intertwined that it's difficult to talk about one without spoiling the other. With that in mind, let's move on. The dialogue in Yuppie Psycho is superb. There wasn't a single character where I just wanted to skip what they were saying. The music and sound also carries the conversation since there is no voice acting. For example, every time someone gets angry and starts yelling, there's this horrible discordant chime that rings out perfectly, reflecting the kind of fight or flight response you would have if you were there in person. The despondent noot noot of office workers cheering sells the fake corporate cheer that you will see in some workplaces. I know for some people that having no voice acting is a big downside, but after playing the game through multiple endings, it would feel weird to have different voices to the ones that I have in my head. On the plus side, the game totally solves the 2023 problems of annoying protagonist syndrome. And yeah, I know it's a 2019 game, but let's be real, it's been a problem for a while now. The music does its best to fit in with the pixel graphics. The production is simple and down-to-earth MIDI music that you would expect just past the 16-bit era. That's not to say it's bad. The general office moments almost have a Transport Tycoon vibe to them. One of the tracks makes me feel like I'm watching Lethal Weapon and you just walked into a penthouse apartment to interview the daughter of a late company CEO, but that could just be me. Since Yuppie Psycho leans so heavily on music to tell its story, it quickly flips between these office moments to these tense, discordant tracks with shock value. Some of them are so trippy that I feel weird just listening to them. Graphically, I don't know what to say. I always have this weird relationship with pixel art. At one end, I have an intense admiration for it. It's almost like the limitation actually draws out more creativity than the other mediums. On the other hand, I kind of wish I could just see everything clearly. Yuppie Psycho has some beautiful pixel work and animation, especially in the cutscenes. I kind of wish that there was a little more resolution in the world, but other than that, it's pretty difficult to fault. Everything is highly detailed, and even though Sintra Corp is a huge company, you can tell it's falling apart from the inside by the grime on the floors and the marks on the wall. That's even before you see your office workers have hung themselves in the storage cupboard after drawing a spider in blood. And yeah, I know it's kind of hard to say that the world is highly detailed when a piece of paper is like 3 pixels, but your mind really starts to put it all together the same way that you did as a kid. I still remember this one part where you're talking to a mouth on a wall, and there's a bunch of naked people worshipping it. I had to stop and look at it for a while. Like, how did they make this scene look and animate so well, with so little? That's the spice. I think the limitation makes it relatable. Just about everyone has opened up Paint and had a go at making pixel art at some point in their life. It's easy to relate your own skill against the artist, which is why I think it's widely admired and why I think 3D games are compared more as a pass-fail basis. Anyways, the takeaway is that the music carries the feeling of the game and the graphics sells the vision, and the vision is horrifically relatable, which is what makes the surreal moments intriguing in spite of the perspective and the game's limitations. Well, that's a lot of good things. So now to tell you what really pissed me off, and why this game is getting an 8.5 instead of a 9. There is a point in the game of no return, and it never tells you. It just happens, and yeah, normally I would be like, well, I guess my ending is my ending, and I'll live with the consequences. But because you didn't know what you were doing, you feel cheated like the promised Overwatch PvE. It's the kind of thing that is going to drive players to look up guides after the first sting. I know I did, because I had a bunch of things I still wanted to do in the game, and I had no idea I would be locked off from it. For the sake of sanity, I'm going to spoil the 2 points of no return in the Executive Edition, so you can experience the game guide-free. Ready? Okay. There is an objective in a cemetery. If you complete this, you cannot return the world state. The other is if you find a secret altar and retrieve an item from behind it. Okay, that's the end of the spoilers, but seriously, it would be worth warning the players that these are game-altering events that lock off other activities. I think what makes it worse in the first instance is that it's not immediately obvious that you have changed the world state because you have to go through a long segment of linear gameplay and plot development before you are given control back. Even then, you might suffer from some delusion that it might still be possible to correct your error, but again, it's impossible to know without a guide, so there. I didn't experience every ending, but after playing a few, I can tell you that the ones I did try out made me want to find the other endings. I think the replay value is more or less just finding the different endings, and that's fine. Games with a lot of puzzles are like that. Once you know them, you know them. The good news is that you don't need to replay the entire game to get all the endings. You can just load up a save and try stuff out. It's probably worth mentioning that Yuppie Psycho has limited saves. As in, you save by photocopying your face onto witch paper. So if you don't have a sheet of witch paper, you can't save. If the printer you want to save at has no power, you can't save. And if the printer is out of ink, then you're going to have to replace the ink. I always worry that these systems will feel like pinching your nipples for pleasure, but I think Yuppie Psycho does a good job of giving enough to save the game after important moments, while also keeping your butt cheeks clenched when you choose to risk exploration without saving. Overall, I walked away from Yuppie Psycho thinking, damn, what a stupid name for such a good game. Like, I get what they were going for, but they didn't really do themselves any favors. There's a place called the Kimberleys in South Africa, and my dad would tell me stories about how kids would just be playing in their backyards and find diamonds. And that's how I feel about Yuppie Psycho. I just happened across a diamond while I was just messing around in the Steam store. The gameplay is fun, the graphics are good within the set limitations, the music and sound carries, and every time you think you've seen just about every weird thing they could stuff into an office building, it's going to show you something you weren't expecting. This is a game that everyone should experience, and it's a shame because I know even by my own standards, I probably wouldn't have picked it up simply looking at the cover. Gun to my head, and it's an HB pencil. I give Yuppie Psycho the Executive Edition an 8.5 out of 10.